Okay, good morning everyone, and Hazak Baruch. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Monday morning. Monday morning, everyone, and a new week, a new parasha. Today's class is dedicated anonymously for the refuah shalema, for the success, for the safety, for the protection, for the hatzlacha of all of Am Yisrael. Be'ezrat Hashem, our learning should go a very long way in bringing a lot of yeshuot, and Be'ezrat Hashem, the ultimate geula b'mehera b'yamenu. Amen. My friends, parashat Haye Sarah, Haye Sarah, the life of Sarah. Okay, now parasha, Abraham's wife Sarah passes away. Sarah Imenu, she passes away. And parasha begins, and let us read together. Vayihiyu Haye Sarah me'a shana, esrim shana, vesheva shanim, shenei Haye Sarah. Okay, now the truth is, it's very wordy over here. A lot of extra words. Basically, the pasuk is saying Sarah lived till 127. That's what it says. Now, how many words do you need to say that? Sarah lived till 127. Okay? 6 words. You only need 6 words. The pasuk has double. 12 words. How'd you get from 6 to 12? Okay? Vayihiyu Haye Sarah, it was the years of Sarah. Me'a shana, esrim shana, sheva shanim, 100 years, 20 years, 7 years. And then again, shenei Haye Sarah. These were the years of Sarah. Okay, now, of course, there are many different ideas that I'm sure you heard in the past. Rashi is very famous, and he's telling you 120 and 7, and each one has its own milestone, has its own accomplishment. And then, Shenei Haye Sarah, to tell you again, they were all equally good. We have to see the Orah Hayim though today. Today, let's see what he has to say. He begins with a question, of course, Tzarich lada'at lama amar vayihiyu. Why does the parasha begin and say vayihiyu Haye Sarah, which means Sarah's life was? Lo amar keseder amur bechol tzadikim. By anyone else in the Torah, it doesn't say that. It doesn't say vayihiyu Haye. It doesn't say it. It just says, you ready? As an example, Vayhi Adam. Adam lived till 127. Or Shem lived till, right? By everyone, and it says they lived till. It should have said Vatehi Sarah. Vatehi Sarah. Sarah lived till 127. What does it mean? Vayihiyu. The extra word Vayihiyu. Haye Sarah. And it was. Interesting. You could have left it out. It could have just said Vatehi. She lived till 127. Okay. So what does it mean over here? Yidba'ir aderech omram. Let us see together today, Orah Hayim, what he has to say. This could be explained through the teaching of our rabbis. Why did Sarah die? Anyone know? How did Sarah die? What was the reason of her death? Cause of death. Cause of death? Our rabbis tell us. Shesibat mitata, the reason Sarah died, hayak shehodi'a akedat Yitzchak, when they notified her that Avraham took Yitzchak to the altar to sacrifice him. Vekimat shelo nishhat, and he was almost slaughtered. Parha nishmata, her soul left her body. Sarah died, cause of death, akedat Yitzchak. She heard about the akedah. She heard that her husband took her son, who she waited 90 years to finally have, her one and only child, that her son lost his mind. Seemingly, she heard that her son died, and she fainted. She died. She died from that news, right? It took her life. It sucked the life out of her. Okay, and who sheramaz, right? So according to this, Sarah dies because of the anguish, because of the tragedy, because of the pain of the death of Yitzchak. Hu sheramaz be'omro vayihiyu, and that's why he begins with vayihiyu. Because anyone that knows the word vayihiyu, what does it mean vayihiyu? Vayihiyu. Hu lashon tsa'ar. The word vayhi in general, vayhi, and it was, right? Every story begins with once upon a time, right? Once upon a time. How do you say once upon a time in Hebrew? There's 2 ways to say once upon a time. Either vayhi or vehaya. Vayhi, there's 2 ways to start a story. Vayhi, and it was. Vehaya, and it was. Vayhi is a connotation of sadness from the word vai. What's vai? Oi vai voi. Oi va voi. Whoa, Vayhi, why, right? It's a sad story. Anytime you see Vayhi, it's sad, right? Vayhi bimei Achashverosh, it was a sad time. Vayhi bimei Shevot HaShofetim, with Ruth, there was a famine, it was difficult. Anytime you see Vayhi, now the Gemara does elaborate on this in Masechet Megillah, but either way, just for us, for this class, we'll leave it there on this point, that Vayhi is a sad word, okay? Now, Vehaya is a happy word. Vehaya, happy. Why? Why is Vehaya happy and Vayhi sad? Is it just a rule? Because Vai sounds like woe to me, Oy vavoy. But there's something deeper here. Vayhi means past, it was. Vehaya means future. Vehaya, it will be. When a person lives their life in the past, when a person lives their life either in regret or frozen or stuck in the past, or fatalist approach to life, thinking that the way things are the way they have to be. If this is my luck and this is my life and this is my nasi, this is my mazal, this is who I am, this is what it's got to be. I wasn't destined for greatness, I wasn't destined. A person lives with that mentality of Vayhi, this is how it is. This is how it is. If a person's living like that, that's very sad. That's Vayhi, that's Sa'ar, that's sad. Vehaya, it will be in the future. A person doesn't look in the past. The person says, don't worry about the past. Look forward. Don't worry about the mistakes I made on dating. Don't worry about the mistakes that I made in business. Don't worry about the mistakes that I made in the relationships. Don't worry about the mistakes that I made religiously. Doesn't matter about my mistakes. How many people say, Rabbi, it's such a shame that I started only my journey at 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years old to get close to Hashem. I wasted 40 years. And that mentality sometimes actually can be very depressing. Instead of it being a boost to push a person forward, it could actually drag a person down. And a lot of times these thoughts, you should know, are the Yetzer Hara talking. The Yetzer Hara wants us to precisely think of those thoughts that we're frozen, that we're regretting. Regret is a very strong, evil inclination tactic. You have to know that. To regret, I should feel bad. I should learn my mistakes. I should learn my lessons. But if I regret it to the point that it's now suffocating me, if I regret it to the point that I am frozen, that is no longer a healthy regret. Everything in life, you should know, needs to be in moderation. Everything in life needs a balance. I'll give you an example. Deen. What does deen mean? Deen means discipline. Discipline is a good thing, right? But discipline is only a good thing if it's for the ultimate purpose of chesed, of kindness. I heard this from Rabbi Kalamani on Shabbat. Beautiful idea. The idea that God wanted to create the world with deen, but then he saw that it wouldn't last, so he infused kindness. He sprinkled elements of chesed. That means that deen means to just, to fair. The idea that God wanted to create the world with deen means that Hashem realized from the beginning of time that actually the best system of life is fair. Fair in the sense that if I gave you a free olam haba, you wouldn't appreciate it. You wouldn't want it. It has to be deen. It has to be that you earned it. The greatest reward is that something that you earned. If I just hand you a golden medal that you didn't fight for, if the other guy resigned, if I just gave you a free, right, you hold the record, but you didn't really earn it, that means nothing. In life, we want to earn our reward. We want to earn our success, right? A kid who takes over a company, he needs to do something with it or else he won't feel like it's his company. And Hashem knew that if he gave us free olam haba, it wouldn't mean anything. So Hashem gave us an element of having to earn it. You got to earn it. It's not not a gift. It's not a handout. It's not a freebie. It's not chesed. It is now earned. You have to earn it. You must deserve it. That's deen. That's tough. That's tough. But it's actually the greatest form of kindness. Higher than chesed, higher than free. The Rambam writes, higher than giving someone a tzedakah, higher than giving someone tzedakah, is giving someone a job. A job? Which one is nicer? If I give a guy $1,000 for free, or if I hire a guy and I make him work, and then I give him $1,000 at the end of the week, which one is nicer? You tell me, my friends. The ones listening, feel free to write it in the response. What do you think is nicer? To give a guy $1,000 for free, or to hire a guy and make him have to pay to have to pay, to have to earn it, and then pay him at the end of the week. I think we would all think, yes, Elliot, 100%. You would think $1,000 for free. No. Rambam writes a job. Give the guy a job to earn the same $1,000 for free that you would have given it to for free. Now he has to earn it. Rambam says it's better to give him a job. Why? Because higher than chesed is deen. Can we understand this? Greater than the kindness is strict. Strict sometimes actually is the best thing. To make someone earn it, to give a guy a job that he now feels, instead of a hazik case, that he's getting a free item, a free reward, now he feels like he is actually earning it. The highest thing in life is when someone earns. So deen is actually a very important thing. In the world that we live in, we need deen. We need, for our sake, we want deen. Problem with deen, if deen suffocates chesed, if we do deen for deen's sake, and we lose sight of the bigger picture, if it becomes all about discipline, the goal of discipline is actually chesed. The goal of fair is because that's the best way for you, for me to do a kindness to you. The best way for kindness to exist is through deen. Deen has to be born from kindness. But once the deen becomes its own goal, devoid, detached, divorced of kindness, then the deen becomes very dangerous. You see, that's what happened in the city of Sodom. Sodom, they believed in deen, no kindness. What was the problem with that? Isn't that how Hashem wanted to create the world, also with deen? Why is that a bad thing? It's a bad thing because deen is good only if it's to promote kindness, if it's for the goal of kindness. But when deen no longer allows kindness to exist, then the deen in itself is a very bad thing. That means, practically speaking, to discipline my kids is good, but only if the discipline is helping my kids grow. The moment the discipline crushes my kid, the moment the discipline no longer allows my kid to perform, to exist, to be, that's a very dangerous type of discipline. Yeah? So discipline, again, just going back to this idea of moderation. So everything in life needs to be taken in the right amount, in the right dosage. Okay? So over here, coming back to our parasha, Vayhi is a very sad word. Vehaya is a very good word. If we feel bad about our mistake, that's very good. But if it causes us to feel stuck, that's a very bad type of regret. Vayhi is sad. Okay? So our parasha says, Vayhiyu Haye Sarah. What a sad day it was that Sarah died. And she lived till 127. And it was so sad because she actually died from the news of the Akedat Yitzchak. Now according to this, Sarah died at the time that she was supposed to, which was 127. But what brought about that death? What brought about her death was the news of Yitzchak. Now, Or HaHaim is now going to say something a little bit wild. He's actually going to say, let's read it together. Another idea. According to the opinion that she died through this bad news, that tells you, if she didn't hear about the bad news, if she didn't hear news of Yitzchak dying, what would have happened? Od lahayim. She would have lived longer. Wow. I just want to pause for 1 second. Or HaHaim saying that Sarah would have lived longer if not for that news, which is a wild thing. Because often we believe that a person is allotted the amount of time of their life that they're going to live till. But the Or HaHaim over here is saying, and by the way, you should know that he's known for this. He says it here that it's possible that a person dies earlier than they should. He's going to say it soon. We're going to see a wild Or HaHaim, a very famous one with Yosef and the brothers. We'll get to that later on. But he's saying it's possible Sarah died earlier than she should have. And that's the word Vayihiyu, Perush, Havaya Hadasha. There was a new creation, a new reality. Mishunet mehaketzva, different from what was originally allotted. Wow. Vayihiyu Haye Sarah. It was a new reality. There was a new amount of years that Sarah lived, 127. Shekitzvat yamea yoterem, because really she was supposed to live more than that. How much? We don't know. But she died young. She died premature. from the news of the Akedat Yitzchak. Right? Fine. Okay. I mean, this is Ora Haim. What are you going to do? This is what he says. Ve'omro. Now, how do you now tie this in with the ending of the Pasuk? Fine. So you explained why Vayiyu. Either it's very sad and she died from this news, or Vayiyu, it was a new reality that was created, that she died younger than she should have. She died at 127. But then, how do you explain now the last words? Shenei Haye Sarat. You repeated it. These were the years of her life. You just told me that. You just told me she lived till 127. You don't have to say again. She lived till 127, and that's how long she lived. Well, if she lived till 127, then I know that that's how long she lived. Why do you have to repeat it again? Shenei Haye Sarat. Rashi, again, he answers, Kulan Shavin Letova. Rashi explains to teach you that all of her life were equal to her. Shavin. There was a certain stability that Sarah had. Sometimes in life, we get carried away. We get overexcited from the good, or we get very anxious from the bad, and we live our lives always highs and lows, super excited, or maybe depressed. And Sarah, she had a wild life. She had amazing things, kid at 90. She had very sad things, 90 years of infertility. But she never allowed any of that to get to her head. Not the highs and not the lows. She remained hishtavut hanefesh. She remained what's called in a certain state of tranquility. She was always balanced, right? Shavin. She stayed calm. She didn't let success get to her head and make her arrogant. She didn't let failure get to her head and make her depressed. She remained Shavin always, her whole life, whatever came her way. That's how Rashi explains this idea of the repeating of the last three words, Shenei Haye Sarah. The Ora Haim, though, he says, based on what we said, Veyiyu Shemeta Mehamat Sa'ar. We said two approaches. One was that she died from the news, and it's a very sad thing. That's how she died. The second one was that she died prematurely. And she died, it was a new amount of years that she had. Instead of the original amount, she had a new amount. Vayihiyu, it was a new reality. Based on each one, he explains what it means, Shenei Haye Sarah. So going back to the first one, that she died on the right time. So Vayihiyu le'agid shemeta mehamat sa'ar. If that's the case, so Shenei Haye Perush means these, by the way, Shenei Haye Sarah. You should know that this 127, that's how long she was meant to live from the beginning of time. Shenei Haye Sarah. These were the years of her life. Don't think that just because she died from the news that she should have died any other way. No, this is how she was going to die. Whether or not she heard the news, this was her death day. Which is, again, the more accepted approach in general. That a person dies when a person dies. That's when they're supposed to die. And that's what the Pasuk is telling you. Shenei Haye Sarah. That Sarah lived till 127, and it was a sad thing because she died from the news of the Akedah. But don't think for 1 second that she died prematurely. No. Shenei Haye Sarah. This is how long she was supposed to live. These were the years that were allotted to her from the beginning of time. That's all one approach. However, according to the second approach, that really she was supposed to live longer and she died younger because of the news. So now what? How do you explain now the words Shenei Haye Sarah? This is how long she was supposed to live? No, it's not. She was supposed to live longer. So he says over here, Lehodia, a new answer. It's telling you Mishpat HaChesed Asher Yishpot HaKadosh Baruch Hu Liyididav. It's coming to tell us the extent of God's kindness that He does with those who He loves. Ki kol tzaddik shelo yishlim yamav. If there is a tzaddik for whatever reason did not finish his life the right amount of years, right? Siba yidu'ah, for whatever reason it would be. If a person did not complete his allotted days, for whatever the reason, again, we don't understand Hashem. It's not up to us to now have to explain Hashem. A lot of times, by the way, just if I could pause, sometimes people feel the need to be God's agent. And if they walk into a Shiva house, if someone's sitting there mourning, crying over the loss of a loved one, especially sometimes it's very hard to wrap our fingers around, if it's a young child or if it's someone who is very righteous, it's always difficult. But sometimes it's more difficult. A little kid is even harder to understand. At least if they're old, okay, this is the way of the world. It hurts. But we understand this is how it works. But a child, why did God do this? And sometimes we pay respects, and people make a very big mistake. They feel like they need to now defend God, and it's their job to answer up for Hashem. Why did God do this? And sometimes they say the dumbest things in a Shiva house. Well, Hashem has his reasons, and he must have finished his tikkun. He must have done what was supposed to, and Hashem wanted him close to him. And sometimes people say very, very silly things. And really, the best thing is to not say anything. The best thing is really to just sit and to just cry with the person. Don't give answers. We don't understand. We don't understand means we don't understand. We don't know why Hashem does things. People that say today things like, well, you know why what's going on in Israel? I'll tell you why this happened, Rabbi. You know why it happened? Did Hashem tell you? Did he tell you why? Do we always know why things happen? Only Hashem knows why. Even the Beit HaMikdash that was destroyed, the Gemara has dozens of opinions. No one knows why things happen. Only Hashem. If you know, what do you know that I don't? Okay? Usually people that say things like that, they're very foolish. Very foolish thing to assume that we know why things in the world happen. We don't know why things happen. We don't know why this happened. What we can do is introspect each person on their own level. But to say it happened because of this, we don't need to now be the ones to explain the reasons of God. God is very, very, very beyond our comprehension. We will never understand Hashem. And part of not understanding Hashem means we don't understand life. We don't understand why certain things happen. And sometimes this pain, this tragedy, we don't have to now come and, explain why God does things. We don't have to explain why Hashem does things. It's not our job to have to come now and defend God. So, over here he says, sometimes the tzaddik passes away prematurely, according to the second approach. And if that happens, he says, Hashem does a big favor. Look at this. Lo yigra Hashem tzaddik ma she'aya marviach ilu chai shanav shlemim. God will not now punish. He will not withhold from that righteous person the reward that he would have earned had he lived his entire lifetime. You see, look, if a guy lived till 100, he did 100 years of good. If he would have lived till 120, he would have done 120 years of good. He would have done 20 more years of good if he lived longer. But now, the guy died younger, for whatever reason is. We don't understand why, but the tzaddik died at a younger age. So what happened to those 20 more years that he should have lived, that he couldn't? So says the Orah Hayim, doesn't matter. God will still reward the tzaddik as if he did it. Even though he didn't do anything. Right? He died, but he'll still get the extra 20 years that he would have done good. Because the tzaddik could say to Hashem, if I would have lived to my full life, my desire would have been to amass even more good deeds. Hashem, you know me, I would have done good. Now that's what it means. Shenei Haye Sarah. These are the years of Sarah, meaning what it means is Sarah lived till 127, and really she should have lived longer. But don't worry, Shenei Haye Sarah, all those other extra years, Shenei Haye Sarah, she also gets rewarded for those years. That's how the Orah Hayim explains this opening pasuk. Okay. He says as well, another final approach to this first pasuk. Vayihiyu Haye Sarah me'ashana. Back to what we said, Vayhi is a sad word. So Vayihiyu, Sarah's life of sadness was me'ashana, 100 years of sadness. He's splitting the 127 with 100, comma. Sarah lived very sad years till 100, comma. Why 100 sad years? 90 of them were barren, and the first 10 he says that Yitzchak was alive, but he was living with the influence of Ishmael. She didn't want Ishmael around, so till he kicked Ishmael out, it took 10 years. So the first 100 years are very sad. And then Esrim v'sheva shanim, right? Esrim shana v'sheva shanim shenei Haye Sarah. And then 27 years is how long Sarah actually lived. Okay? So Vayiyu, 100 years, we're very sad. The 27, we're very happy. Okay? So these are a few different ways of seeing one pasuk in the lens of the Ora Hayim. The pasuk continues and says, the next pasuk, Vatamot Sarah bekiryat arba hi Hebron. Sarah dies in Kiryat Arba, which is Hebron. Anyone here been to Hebron? Anyone here been to Hebron? Right? That's where the Me'arat HaMachpelah is. Right? It's in Eretz Canaan, in the land of Canaan, which is today Israel. Vayavo Avraham lispod lesara ve'livkota. And Avraham comes and he mourns and cries for his wife. And this is one last pasuk that we'll do just for today. And the Ora Hayim explains this pasuk. We know, my friends, there's 4 ways to explain the Torah. The pshat is simple, what it's actually saying. Remez, it's hinting to something else, an allusion. Drash is homiletics, and then sod is Kabbalah. And often we do pshat and we do drash. But sod we almost never do. And remez we rarely do. But here the Ora Hayim has a beautiful remez on this pasuk. That the pasuk, again, it's on a simple level talking about Sarah and her death and where she physically died. She died in Kiryat Arba, which is Hebron, which is in Canaan. But, it also could be alluding to something general for everyone, for all of life. It's besides the specific story, it's if you widen the lens, it's actually hinting to something in general about all of life. Ramaz HaKatuv be'omro be'kiryat Arba. He explains over here that through allusion, Ki chas v'shalom lo yityaches hamita latzadikim. The idea of death, my friends, never applies really to a righteous person. Ela shekiryat arba perush ir. Rather, what it says that Sarah died in Kiryat Arba. What does it mean? She died. She didn't die. She's a tzaddiket. Tzaddikim don't die. But what died is the Arba, the 4 elements. Every person is made up of 4 elements: Esh, Ruach, Mayim, Afar. Fire, wind, water, and earth. And everything in the universe is made up of these 4. Some have more of one, some have more of the other, right? Angels are very tilted on the fire, wind aspect, which makes them spiritual. People are very tilted on the water, earth aspect, okay? Birds have a little bit more of the wind, which is why they could fly. This is what the Ora Hayim said back in the book, in the Perashat Bereshit, okay? But everything in the world is made up of 4 elements. Says the Ora Hayim. So you know what died? Not Sarah, but the Kiryat Arba, the 4, what does he say over here? Ir shehayta benuya me'arba'a yesodot. The city that was built out of these 4 elements, i.e., her physical body died. The Kiryat Arba, but her soul lives on forever. A tzaddik never really dies. The only thing that dies is the Arba, are the 4 elements. Okay, the fire, the wind, the water, the earth, those maybe they die. The physical body dies, but the spiritual body never dies. Okay, so that's hinted to in the word Kiryat Arba. Beautiful. Next, Hebron. What is that hinting to? Perush. Shehagam shemeta. Even though she's dead. Hi mashpa'at bahem bechinat chibur. She still sustains her 4 elements. The word Hebron from the word Hibur, to connect. Usually when a person dies, they decompose, their body decomposes. The tzaddikim, even after they die, haguf eno mushlal me'achayim, but their body does not decompose. A tzaddik's body stays intact. Why is that? You may have wondered, why does that happen? So the Ora Hayim explains, because the guf, the body, is not completely devoid of life. Because the tzaddikim, like we said, are alive even in their death. The story is told, he brings over here in Masechet Shabbat, that Ravachai died, and then the diggers, they disturbed his corpse, and Ravachai comes out of his grave and he starts reprimanding these diggers. And finally they bring Rav Nachman, and he says, wow, how are you still alive? How come your body didn't decay and turn into dust? And he explained, the Ravachai says that certain righteous people have the ability, they have the merit that their bodies remain intact. So what do we see from all of this? That there is a connection between the body and the soul. Okay, I mean, it's a wild story in the Gemara, but it's a story in the Gemara. And this is what it means. How a tzaddik stays alive is because their soul is able to still send, I guess, life to the four elements, even after they're buried. And what is the reason? Let's read this. It's a beautiful, deep idea. When a person is alive in this world, a tzaddik is able to transform the material quality of the elements of which their body is comprised into the holy spiritual quality of the soul. That means right now, as we are living, we are able to turn our physical body holier. It's something that Or Haye says often. Many people say that a person is made up really of a body and a soul. A body and a soul. Let's go back as an example to Parashat Bereshit. Right? We are all made up of a body and a soul, of neshama from God. And he says like this, back in Parashat Bereshit, the first pasuk, my friends, Or Haye, very long pasuk, but very lengthy commentary on the first pasuk. Adam, when God created man, He created him from the source of spirituality, which is what it means. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim. God created, part of man was heavenly, shamayim, right? And also aretz, earthly. Man is comprised of earth and heaven, soul and body, spiritual and physical. Okay? Now, Rutzono yitbarech bazeh, what did God do this for? She'ayidei ma'aseh adam, is that through our actions, my friends, yit'atzem le'apech ha'homer shehu haguf ad sheyeh nechshav tzura. God wanted that our actions throughout our lifetime should transform our body into something spiritual. And you find that the tzaddikim, that's why they don't go back to dirt when they die, because they transformed the dirt part of them, the physical part of them, their four elements. They uplifted them. Zikeku hahomer shelahim. They purified their physical element to the extent that it became spiritual. Right? And therefore the tzaddikim, even in their death, they're called chayim. You understand what's going on over here, my friends? Very deep idea. But this is what the tzaddikim achieve. Sarai menu, all of the tzaddikim, be'emta'ut ma'asim tovim, through the good deeds, through the studying of the Torah, they're able to transform the elements into a spiritual entity, and then they're no longer subject to physical deterioration. The body does not deteriorate. That's why the tzaddikim, their bodies stay intact after death, because their bodies are not really bodies. They're not elements. They're more than elements. They're spiritual. That's what the pasuk's hinting to with the word Hevron, Hibur. The body stays connected. The tzaddikim, right? Only what dies is the four elements. And even those four elements, Chevron, they stay connected. Now he says, if you have a hard time understanding this, let me quote you the Rambam. The Rambam writes in the laws of Yesodei Torah, Halacha 5, chapter 4, look what he writes. That each of the four elements can be transformed into the element to which it is most similar. That means that the earth can turn into water, right? Think of it as an example. When water flows over a rock, slowly it wears away at the rock, and part of the rock dissolves and becomes water. So you see that the earth could slowly become water. And water could slowly turn into wind if it evaporates, right? So when water evaporates, it becomes a gas, it becomes part of the ruach, and as well, ruach can become part of esh. So says Rabbeinu Or Haye over here, when a person cleaves to his creator, all of the elements of which his body is made up of can slowly be transformed into the element of fire, and the fire then could be transformed into the spiritual fire of the soul. Vehavin, and ponder this. I mean, it's a very deep idea, but it sounds something like that we could slowly a little bit grasp, okay, the idea that the tzaddikim are able to transform their physical body into something very spiritual. And therefore, that's why their body doesn't decay. Now you should know that when God says to Adam, Ki me'afar bata ve'el afar tashuv, What does that mean? God says to Adam, because you come from earth, you will go back to earth and you will die. So he says over here, he says, what does it mean that now Adam is going to die because he comes from earth? He always came from earth. But he says, this means that had Adam avoided the sin of eating from Etz HaDa'at, this is going back, Ora Hayim. If Adam didn't eat from the tree of Da'at, Bischar, as a reward for having fulfilled Hashem's command, Hashem would have intensified his spiritual elements. His body would have been refined to such a degree that its base, physical matter, would have been transformed into a spiritual form through the strengthening of his spiritual element. You understand? This is what God means. Afar ki afar me afar bata. God says to Adam, by sinning you became afar. That means you gave a force, you gave a certain power, you gave a certain strength or consistency to the afar element within you, the fourth element of dirt. Instead of making the dirt holy, you have lowered the dirt. You have made it a more primary force. And this is what God says to Adam. But either way, my friends, this is what the Ora Hayim says, coming back to our parasha, that Sarah dies, Kiryat Arba, and Chevron. And finally, Be'eretz Kena'an. What does that mean? One last bit, one more minute. Ki ha'olam hazeh yikare Eretz. That means that she died through Eretz Canaan. What does it mean she died through Eretz Canaan? Eretz Canaan is alluding to the Yetzer Hara. And ubemtzaut hitatzmuto, the verse means that how does one raise their body to become spiritual like Sarah? It's done by resisting the Eretz Canaan, the temptations of the Yetzer Hara. And when one does that, they become like the tzaddikim, and they are able to make their body something that is itself a Shekhinah, a carrier, a house of the divine, of the Shekhinah, something spiritual and godlike. Okay, my friends, we'll stop over here. Have a wonderful day, and hopefully we'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.